Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. How we doing, folks? Long time no see. We are 24 days away from Texas A&M's kick against UTSA to start the season. I missed you guys. Apologies for the radio silence on my end. Some things that are in the works that I'd love to share with you when the time is right. I think it's pretty exciting. It's college football related, not really podcast or A&M related, but it's pretty cool, and I'm excited to share it when that time comes. So, um, yeah, I've been pretty nose to the grindstone working on that project, but excited to sit down here with you guys and talk a little 2025 Aggie football. I know that. Sorry, I'm very rusty trying to get on my uh, all of my ducks in a row. I forgot what even uh, platform I used before I sat down on here. So it's Restream, by the way. I'm on Restream, um, but yeah, I feel like so much has happened. Like I don't really know where to start. I don't have too many notes, but I guess a good place to start would be just kind of a pulse check or state of the program type of conversation about this Aggie football team. I think we, had a roller coaster last year, as most college football seasons can be, and it got really, really good there for a second, and then things got really, really rough. And with it ending that way, I think I've talked about this on maybe on here and on some other shows that I've been on, but just the whole psyche of the A&M fan base is just not in a great spot right now. Um, am I able to add these? Sorry, I'm trying to get my streams. I guess my streams didn't go on Facebook and YouTube. Here we go. Or sorry, Facebook and Twitter. Fantastic. Um, so yeah, so I'm trying to get. There we go. Good, good. Um, so yeah, so the psyche of the fan base has been in a weird spot really since the College World Series loss to Tennessee. I hate to bring that up, but obviously the way that series ended, and then the events that ensued, um, the the football season, the basketball season, this past year's baseball season, just all around, um, just not just not where A&M fans want it to be. Um, so things are tough right now. We're all counting on Mike Elko and Marcel Reed and this team to kind of get us in a good spot and rebound things a little bit. Which um, I think that's probably the best place to start. Is I think football fans now, college football fans now, expect too much too fast. Back in the day, it was understood. Hey, new coach takes over, you got to give him 3 years to kind of get his guys into the program, get the culture established, all that good stuff. Um, get his schemes implemented for multiple years, um, and that was all fine and dandy. Like year three was what everyone was looking to. Well, now with the transfer portal, with NIL, with all this other stuff, I mean, coaches are still paid, you know, very handsomely. Um, people, fans want results immediately, and I I don't disagree. I think Elko, where this program was when he took over, was in a pretty bad spot. I mean, culture wise, it was you know about as bad as you can get. Talent wise, it was okay, better than most job openings when a new coach gets there, but definitely some deficiencies on the roster. He did what he could, and then had some great moments last year. Obviously, quarterback didn't go the way they planned. Um, you end up making a switch, or you're back and forth the first 6 games, and then you make a switch mid game against LSU through the rest of the season, which was the correct call. You had some guys you were counting on that got hurt either very early, like Ruben Owens and Tyreek Chappelle, or got hurt at very inopportune times, like Chase Pasantis and Le'Veon Moss. I mean, if just Le'Veon Moss is healthy for all of South Carolina and Auburn and Texas, and who knows who the bowl opponent would have been. Um, it's a whole. If you just had him and Basantis healthy, it would have been a whole different ball game because our left guard or left guards, because they rotated some guys there. They could not block against LSU. They could not block against Texas or South Carolina. They were fine against Auburn, but it's tough. And we had some depth, but it got depleted at those spots. Ruben goes down about this time last year, and you're thinking, okay, we already had only 4 running backs, which is not a ideal number to have in this conference because it is so physical. Well, now you only have 3 for the rest of the year because Ruben ain't coming back, which I know he played at the end of the year, wasn't really healthy, but now you've got 3 guys and 3 quality guys. Obviously, a workhorse and all SEC guy in Le'Veon Moss, but when he goes down, you're playing these tough games on the road with a brand new quarterback who's a redshirt freshman and deficiencies at receiver. And, I think we'll get to the defense a little bit later, but, and through all that, like the offense did enough things to win most, like not Texas, but they did enough to win Auburn. They did enough to win USC. South Carolina, they got down 17-0, and then they went up 20-17, and then, their defense, turned up to a new gear, and then our defense kind of fell apart there at the end. But, it was just it's just a pretty typical first year. I say that to bring up some other first years of some coaches who were in the Final Four of college football last year. One of them made the championship game, and both these teams are on A&M schedule this year. Both of them are very high quality opponents, maybe the 2 toughest that we'll face all season. But Marcus Freeman, who I think is a really good football coach, I think he's got Notre Dame rolling. Obviously they were the national runner-up. They were they tried to come back against Ohio State. Obviously, Ohio State had too much firepower. Notre Dame, honestly, was pretty beat up at the end of the season. But you watch them play, and it's just they're physical, they're smart. They don't have the most explosive playmakers, but they've got a badass defense. They have one of the best secondaries in college football, and they just like you've got to earn every single yard against Notre Dame. And with the way he's recruiting now, I think you're going to see them. Stay at this level, if not, even take another step, especially if they get the offense right. But people forget, like, Marcus Freeman took over for Brian Kelly. Like, he didn't take over for like some bum coach that didn't bring any players from Notre Dame. Like, Brian Kelly, like, was a good coach at Notre Dame, and like obviously LSU paid him a ton of money to come down there to Baton Rouge and leave Notre Dame. So. Marcus Freeman gets there, first time head coach. It's a big ask for a new coach, but they lost to Marshall at home, and they lost to Stanford, I think, also at home in his first year. I had to scroll down to find them. I'm trying to find the SP plus of these teams in their first year per Bill Connolly's numbers. Let's see, Notre Dame. So Notre Dame finished 37th in the country in SP plus, 49th on offense, 47th on defense. That's pretty bad by their standards or our standards, or any team that wants to be a playoff team by their standards. Here's A&M last year. They finished 13th overall in SP plus. They were 21st on offense, 19th on defense, 19th special teams. So pretty much top 20 across the board. And Notre Dame was number 7 in defense. So they went in 3 years, they went from 47th, losing to Marshall and Stanford, to, an incredible defense, and, not too far off from winning the entire thing. Um, the other team I want to bring up, Texas. Um, Honestly, I think Texas on offense has been pretty average most of Sarkisian's tenure. But what's been great after year one has been the defense. They were, I think, hang on, I just had them pulled up. They were number two in defensive SP plus last year. Just did not allow big plays. Were very disruptive. You could not run on them. Just a terrific, really all around defense. Um, Sark's first year and Kwiatkowski, the DC, he's been there all of Sark's tenure. They were 86th in defense, playing in the Big 12. Like, not this isn't their schedule last year, which wasn't that tough, but um, this against Big 12 teams, they were 86. They scored on the road. They scored 3 points against Iowa State, and I get it. I know we want to. I, I heard this recently, and I tend to agree. I think I said it on here too. But if you just change the result of the Auburn game from a year ago, I think everyone feels a lot differently. But the way that game went, like it's not that we lost, but the way we lost, like getting down early, that was piss poor. But then the offense brings us back, with a few like 4 minutes left in the game, and the defense just allows the derpiest quarterback of all time to just derp his way down the field and tie the game, double overtime. Auburn wins it at home. I think if you just flip that result, the whole mood of everyone is a little bit different. But I get it. I mean, I'm not excusing it, but it's tough. And um, I think like anyone that's pouring dirt or uh, you know is counting out Mike Elko and this program, I think they're mistaken. I think we need to see more. But yeah, that brings us to this year's team. 2025 schedule is I think a little bit tougher than last year, just based on where the games are played. Um, Honestly, across the board, I may get into this before the season starts, but kind of a great reset across college football. Um, a ton of quarterbacks have graduated or gone to the NFL. Um, the teams that were really really good last year, like Ohio State and Texas, they're picked one and two this year, but both lost. You know, 12 draft picks, 14 or 15 draft picks, each. So um, Notre Dame lost a bunch. LSU lost their offensive line. Um, A&M lost some guys on defense, and we're trying to, get things rolling with Marcel Reed. A lot of new quarterbacks across the landscape. Ty Simpson at Bama, Julian Sand at Ohio State, obviously Arch Manning at Texas, um, Dante Moore at Oregon. There's just really, I mean, aside from LSU, Clemson, and Penn State, I mean, most people are bringing back or trying to break in, new quarterbacks, or they're a team like A&M to where uh, it's a it's a relatively new starter. Like Marcel didn't start every game last year; he started about 7 or 8 games. Um, so it's interesting for sure. Like I mean, obviously, I'm forgetting guys like Sellers at South Carolina. Um, but then they had 5 draft picks on defense. Like it's tough to sit here and project, which I know is what this podcast is trying to do. But it's I don't know. There's an opportunity out there for this team to go and take advantage. So um, let's start with the quarterback, and you know I guess the coaching staff. Everyone kind of stayed intact. I'm trying to think if anybody left. I'm pretty sure it's the same exact staff. Yeah, it's everybody. Like I think everyone's back. They brought in this is important. They brought in the DC from James Madison, who had a really really nice defense last year. Was also Elko's co DC in 2023 at Duke. His name is Lyle Hemphill. He is running the secondary this year for the Aggies. He's not an on-field coach. He's kind of a analyst, defensive analyst, I guess is what you would call him. But really really sharp guy. Could be uh, a protege type for uh for Elko. Um, but offense, quarterback, Colin Klein, Marcel Reed. It's I've done a lot of defending of Reed, and it's not because, I think his play was good enough in most of his starts last year to win. Was he perfect? No, definitely not. Even against Auburn, where he played pretty well, there were things he could have done differently to put us in an even better spot, offensively. I think Klein gets a lot of hate. Some decisions were questionable. I agree. Um, but there was things in that game against Auburn that Marcel just either didn't have enough time or just missed just a little bit. Just wasn't quite sharp enough. So um, here's the deal with the offense. I think you don't really need you don't really need Marcel Reed to be like Superman, like Lenora Sellers or Cam Newton or anyone like that. You just need him to be efficient and be smart with the football and and make good decisions. But um, the way they built this team compared to last year's team is probably a good way to do it. This time last year, everyone in A&M circles was saying if there's a weakness on offense, like we think the O line can be better. We weren't sure yet. We had to see it. It was so bad the 2 years prior. We were like, hey, the line should be better. We think quarterback might be okay. It wasn't. Um, but the big thing was receivers, and we just didn't have. We didn't have the quantity. We didn't have the quality. We had, there was a lot of question marks uh, and unknowns. And then once they became known, it was no good. Like we were counting on Moose Muhammad. He was basically a no show. Never played all season. Noah Thomas, some really high highs, some very other average performances. Jabri Barber breaks his foot in April, works his way back, has a nice solid year. Nothing spectacular. And then guys like J.J. Walker, Cyrus Allen, like yeah, they're fine players, but they're not. I think if you look at the room last year and look at it now, it's so different. It's pretty remarkable how in 18 months that Elko has transformed that entire room. So Elko gets here, Evan Stewart, Evan Stewart bolts to Oregon. That's fine. Uh, every every receiver we had committed, um, with the exception of Draylon Miller, who flipped to Colorado. I think we still would have taken him. Obviously, I think he's a good player, but uh, the other guys, they all got cut loose and went to lesser programs than this one. And Elko comes in, cuts those guys loose. He signs Terry Bussey. Uh, he goes and flips Isaiah Williams and flips Ashton Bethel Roman, who those three of your top five guys going into this year. Like all, true freshmen, young guys last year. Bussey played a little bit. He was kind of banged up and switching spots halfway through camp and all that sort of stuff. But the buzz around those other two guys, especially Ashton Bethel Roman, um, watch out for him. Number 3 this season. He's making a lot of noise. I mean, he's 6 foot. That's kind of the theme of this group. Like they're all about the same size. There's not a big 6'6" guy. There's not a T Higgins type or something like that. But they're all between 5'10", 6 foot. Uh, a lot of speed, a lot of quickness, and great hands. There's one guy that's above 6 foot. We'll talk about him in a second. But um, so I think so I it's if there's optimism to be had, uh, it's the veteran presence on the offensive line. You bring back your top 7 guys, which is incredibly rare. You've got 3 guys that can play tackle. You've got 4 guys that can play on the interior. Actually, you've got 5 guys that can play on the interior after Elko's comments the other day. And I think even the young guys that are behind them, the second year guys, are generating a lot of buzz and could, if needed, if it got down to that, you know, a couple of those guys could uh, could be just fine against most teams. Um, sorry, I'm kind of all over the place. I'm a little bit rusty, but I'm trying to piece this thing together for you on offense. Um, at receiver, like I named those three guys: Bussy, Bethel Roman, Isaiah Williams. Um, all fast, all can catch, but they're probably numbers 3, 4, and 5 in the receiver room. Number one, which I buried the lead here, is NC State transfer KC Concepcion. I have loved this kid since he, you know, burst onto the scene as a freshman. Was the ACC Newcomer of the Year. Um, just a Swiss Army knife of a football player. They have not been very good on offense in his time over there. That's probably why he decided to transfer. Um, but he did it all for them last year, especially. I mean, they put him at running back, they put him at wildcat quarterback, they played him at the slot, they played him outside. I mean, he was, you know, like he was the go-to guy on offense, and they just, you know, they they were a very mediocre team. They had a young quarterback, and um, it just wasn't a great season for them. So uh, since he's gotten here, he's drawn just, you know, absolutely rave reviews for his not just his talent but his work ethic. I love the quote the other day, you know, which is a point that I talk about on here sometimes about, you know, when you're trying to evaluate a player and people are talking about, oh, well, this guy, you know, he's only been playing football for a year or two, you know, like that's cool. I want guys that were born playing football. Like I want a receiver that has played receiver his entire life and knows routes and knows how to, you know, how to trick defenders and catch the football. Like I don't want 25 projects in a recruiting class. KC is that guy that's, you know, that's been a ball player since he was, you know, since he was walking. Someone asked him the other day, you know, is it a lot of pressure to be that go-to guy at A&M this season? And he was like, I don't see it that way. He's like, I've done this my whole life. It's just going out there and playing football. So um, I think I think he's in for a big year. I've taken him in every almost every uh, college fantasy league I'm in. I've drafted him. I think he's going to lead the team in targets by a wide margin, and be Reed's go-to guy if things break down. So um, I think he does most damage out of the slot for this team, but I think Klein will move them around and do different things. The second guy is another transfer who I am equally, if not more, excited about, and that's Mario Craver from Mississippi State. If that sounds familiar, well, you've probably already heard about him by now if you follow Aggie football at all. But really kind of tore us up a little bit whenever we played them over there. You ask Will Lee, you ask Mike Elko. He said he was the toughest guy we had to cover last year. Period. As a true freshman last year. Also burned Georgia for like a 75-yard touchdown in Athens a few weeks before they played us, and then like he's the guy that you watch in the clips and practice and stuff like that. He's a different kind of receiver than we've had in a long time. I mean, and I think they're all that way. I think for so long we've had, you know, just average to above average receivers ever since since Christian Kirk, and that's not a slight. I mean, I think, you know, we got some great years out of Anaya Smith, who's definitely probably the top of that list between then and now. Um, and I would take Anaya Smith on my team all day, every day. This is not a slight to him at all. Um, but guys like Concepcion, guys like Mario Craver, they've got that extra gear. And Craver, man, like you watch him in and out of his breaks, how he can stop and start, accelerate, catch the football. It's really exciting. My I'm so glad I'm not alone on this show. I've got some friends here that like to chime in. Alante Brooks, uh, former best man at my wedding. Um, he said, "Hell, not even average. These past wide receivers have been trash." Hard to argue with that. But seriously, like that went from, hey, what's the biggest weakness on the whole team last year? It's receiver, and now this year it may be one of our best strengths. And um, guys I haven't even talked about yet. There's a couple of there's 3 true freshmen. There's 2 that I think are very, very exciting and I think could make an impact this year. Um, I'll save the best for last, but TK Norman, um, you know, I've said on here before, I don't like to talk about, oh, like this guy should be rated higher on 247 or on 3 or whatever recruiting service. I don't really like to do that or play that game, but there's a couple guys in this class, and one of them is Landon Rink. He should have been a 4-star. The other is TK Norman. TK Norman was a 3-star from Carver, Alabama. Um, I don't know what they missed on him, but he's not a 3-star player. I'll tell you that right now. He may get some serious playing time this year. He's going to be a really really good player here, but um, guys like him and Craver and Bethel Roman, like those guys are all built you like you would see Bama receivers in their heyday with you know, Ruggs and Devontae Smith and those type of guys, like which that's the receiver coach that we have now is Bama's old receiver coach. So it makes sense that we go that direction. But um, TK Norman, I mean, I think he's up to 185. I think he's flirting with 6 foot, but long arm guy, super quick in and out of his breaks, uh, great ball skills, and some true breakaway speed. Um, and then maybe the highest ceiling of everyone on the team is 5-star freshman Jerome Miles from Corner Canyon, Utah. Um, I'll be honest, like you hear a 5-star receiver and you're like, hell yeah, that's what we need here at A&M is a 5-star receiver to come in here and start day one and just, you know, kick ass. Um, and Miles could have done that had he not torn an ACL, I think last October. Um, he was also hurt his junior year and missed several games. So um, you watch the film and there's not very much of it from his junior and senior year. And you're like, hey, this is pretty impressive, but I don't really know what to expect after those injuries. I mean, pre-injury, I think he ran a 10-3 100-meter. Also, by the way, he's 6'2", 225. Just a physical freak of nature is Jerome Miles. And but you don't know until you see him in a college uniform, especially when you haven't played that much and you're coming off an injury. And if you see the clips that are on Twitter from practice, I believe on Monday, um, yeah, he's good. He's he may not play a ton this year, and they're just now like I think Monday was the first day he practiced. He's just now getting back into it. Obviously, he's been working out and whatnot. I think he ran track in the spring, but um, man, he's the one guy that looks different from a size standpoint. Like I said, 6'2". Uh, I think he's up to 225. You can tell he's very well put together. But just he's that big and he's fast and maybe the best ball skills on the team. Like you know, and I know it's just practice. We need to see it in the game, but like some of the catches, you know, that he's making on in practice already, it's impressive. I think you know if I'm charting it, I think your top guys are Concepcion, Craver, probably Bethel Roman. I think he is a sneaky guy to, you know, really make some noise. I think that's a pretty solid top three. And then, you know, gosh, you got 7 guys that can get playing time and probably feel pretty good about. And last year you had none, 1.5. I mean, it's so different. And like, um, if that's what I'm saying, if with the offensive line back, and we'll talk running back in a second. If you can get, if Marcel just makes a minimum improvement from, just a standard, 1 year to the next experience, improvement, this offense can be really really good. And I mean, it's it's I think I'm more excited to watch the offense than the defense this year. Um, Alante asked if any of these guys will get the red shirt. I think the one freshman I didn't talk about, Kelshawn Johnson, he's probably the most likely to redshirt. From a smaller school, was hurt in the spring. I think he's probably, playing catch up to the other, his fellow classmates there. So, um, if I had to guess, it'd probably be him. But I mean, he's what your eighth guy, on the depth chart. So, and hey, the thing is now, you get up by 40 or 50 against Samford or whoever it is we play later in the year, and you can get him some reps and not burn his red shirt. So, I mean, hell, I mean, you could say the same for maybe even Norman and Miles if that room stays healthy. So, um, if you can't tell, the receivers on this team is probably my biggest. Um, it's easily the biggest difference from last year, maybe with the exception of Elko calling the defense, which we'll get into soon. But it's probably number one reason for excitement because we just haven't had it. I mean, we've had some really good running backs, a couple of good O lines lately, but I mean, the receiver talent just has not been there. I think um, it's there now, and I think even like 2026 and on is going to be, you know, they'll probably contend for top 5 or 10 receiver room in the country. In that, from next year on. Um, Running backs. So I think Moss is you know on probably a bit of a pitch count right now with practice. He's back. He's participating in practice, but you know uh, they're going to ease him in, which rightfully so. But the other guys, we've got five other running backs on this team now. So um, Ruben Owens, fully healthy, full go. They had his interview out there today. If you go to the A&M YouTube channel, he feels great. I think it's a big year for him. I think A&M gets a lot of attention for having one of the best backfields in the country, and they could if Moss is healthy. They definitely could, but a lot of that rides on Ruben being a 5-star caliber guy. So um, he's one of the X. I think him and Terry Bussey are probably the biggest X factors on offense. Like obviously the quarterback, but if that's 2 5-star players right there. Like, there's not a lot of those guys we have on offense, right now. So, especially not in their second and third years. So, I think if those guys can take their game to a new level, then the offense can be really, really special. Um, but I think after Ruben, I mean, you got Steady Eddie, Amari Daniels. He's great. I mean, he's a perfect third running back to have in the SEC. He blocks well. He is pretty explosive. He runs tough. Um, Whenever Moss and Ruben have worn down a team, I think Amari can make some hay, against some worn out defenses. And then EJ Smith, I think he has really bounced back from. I mean, he was injured a lot at Stanford before he got here. Didn't look the best last year, but I mean, even the little bit we saw in the spring, I was like, man, he looks like a different player. Also, a very good pass pro running back. So that's also important. Um, O line, you know, I'm I'm such a big fan of the guards. I think Basantis is he may get drafted the highest out of anyone. If he were to come out next year, which he's a junior, he doesn't have to come out, and he's a guard, so it's not a premium position. But if he did leave, he may go the highest. Uh, I think it'd either be him, Cassius Howell, or maybe Willie or Moss. But Basantis is he's an absolute stud and no doubt NFL player. Um, Same thing for Armaje Reed Adams. I think he was preseason All SEC. Um, you know, on Monday when Elko spoke to the media, uh, interesting nugget that they're tinkering with Trezun at center. He was second team or third team All SEC left tackle for you last year. Ton of experience. Will be an NFL uh, draft pick, but I think the NFL sees him as a center and not as a tackle. Um, Now, here's the thing: they're not just going to move their best left tackle that protects their quarterback's blind side to center just for the hell of it, So um, I think this is a backup plan in case the other two centers get injured, or if uh, if a guard gets hurt and they got to move a guy to guard. I think this is probably a contingency, but I think them even bringing it up is it probably bodes well for the other tackles. I think the two fifth year seniors, um, uh, Ruben Fothery and Demetrius Crownover. I think Crownover probably starts. I don't think it's a guarantee, but I think they're probably battling there, him and Fothery. Uh, but Crownover started every game last year. He was better than he'd been. Um, and that's the thing with these guys. I mean, here's from left to right. Here's what you're looking at. You're looking at a fifth year senior in Trey Zune, um, a true junior, third year guy, and high NFL draft pick in Chase Pasantis, a fourth year guy in Mark Naboo at center, which uh, I think Naboo is probably the least talked about guy that got hurt last year. Um, there's some guys on defense we'll get into in a second, but on offense, obviously we lost Ruben, we lost Moss, we lost Pasantis for a little bit, and then he came back. But Mark was our starting center. Like he won the job last year in camp and gets hurt in the first half of the Notre Dame game. And then, they played musical chairs with Shanahan and Coley. And, I think Coley kind of took the job and, finished out the season. But, um, and he's fine against almost everyone. But against Texas and Notre Dame and the better teams, you need Mark out there. So I think, it was a meniscus for him, so not a full, not a bad recovery. He was back, went through all of spring, which I think is huge. Looked really good in the spring game, I'm being honest. So um, that, down the stretch last year, when you don't against LSU, and which even though they won that game against LSU and South Carolina, you don't have your starting center or your left guard, and their whole D line got drafted. Like they were tearing us up. Like Marcel had no time back there. So um, I think having a fully healthy, starting five, as I knock on this wooden desk, I think it's a big deal. And obviously right guard, a sixth year senior in Reed Adams, and then two fifth year seniors battling at right tackle in Fothery and Crownover. Um, Alante brings up Lamont Rogers. Yeah, I mean, you know, another 5-star on offense, true freshman, got here back in the spring. You can see the traits, and I think in the spring game, you could see some of the like the rawness, like the not polished parts of his game. Um, but it's there. I mean, like once he figures out how to use his feet and hands together, and truly, the technique of pass protection, he's going to be a monster. And I think he's probably a really good bet to start next year. Luckily, you've got three guys who are, you know, super experienced fifth year seniors before it gets to him. But he's also a freak of nature. So if you needed him, you could throw him in there. Um, I'm doing 40 minutes on offense. I've still got to do the defense. So it's about how I thought this would go, if I'm being honest. Give me 1 second. Lastly, tight end. I don't really know what to make um, of this tight. I think the tight end room will be improved, but there's so many guys here that I don't know who if there's a starter or like who gets what reps. I'll say this. You know, I think a guy like Amari Niblack, he probably fits more with the receivers than the tight ends. I think he's uh, back in my day we'd call him OW, offensive weapon. He's not really a position uh player. Like he's just, hey, your job is to get out there and catch the football, and you're going to do it from like whatever spot we put you in. That's what your job's going to be. You're not out there to block. and that kind of thing. So I think if you look at the videos, he's kind of been with both groups, with the receivers and the tight ends during practice. So um, he's going to play. I don't know how many snaps per game. If I had to bet, I think Theo is your starter there. Which, by the way, if you've got Texags United or like whatever the NIL thing is now, and you can hear the interviews, um, they had one with him a few weeks ago. Great kid, from Sweden. If you're not familiar, has been here for I think 3 full seasons now. This is his fourth year. Just a super talented guy, and I think he's finally starting to click on the physicality of football at this level. Because he even said in the interview, he's like, I played receiver. I was whatever he is, 6'6", 260. Playing receiver, playing receiver against a bunch of little Swedish folks and just tearing them up. So, uh, he's had 3 years in the weight room here. He's built like a Greek god. So, um, I think it's a big year for him. I think he can be a real weapon and block for you. But you went and got other guys that can block. You went and got Nate Burkacher from Nebraska, who's can kind of do both, probably more of a blocker. And then he was out in the spring, but now he's healthy. Seems like Micah Riley from Auburn, who is a true blocking tight end. Now I will say if we go 12 personnel and we have two tight ends, one down, one kind of in a wing, I think Riley will be the one that's like hand in the dirt tight end, like that kind of definitely more of a blocker. Um, Got some good hands though, like from the videos, but not a super fast guy or twitchy guy, but definitely a big body that can block. And this is going to be a pretty physical running game, and I think Klein wants to use a tight end, so I think he's pretty excited about Micah Riley. Um, and the wild card, I mean, there's so many good players and good prospects on this team, but man, the one if I could the one young guy, like freshman or sophomore, that I could say, hey, that guy's going to be um, an NFL player for a long, long time. It's Keati Armstrong, the tight end from Jasper. 6 foot, 6'6", 275, 35-inch arms, effortless catcher of the football. Already built, already strong. He's a guy that needs time to figure out the blocking and things like that. Like he was more of a, probably more of a receiver type guy for Jasper. Also played some defensive end. Um, but I don't think he's like a Crownover. Like whenever Crownover got here, he was recruited as a tight end, but you're like, yeah, that guy's he's gonna be a tackle next week. The rate he's going. I don't think Keati's that way. I think he's built like a tight end. Um, Honestly, if you built a tight end in a lab, it's probably what Armstrong looks like. Um, but for this year, I just don't know. What is that? 5 names there if you count Nyblack, and it's a lot. I mean, it's probably an underrated competition this fall, this camp that no one's really talking about. So I don't know. What I do know is I think it'll be an improvement from last year where you didn't have the best blockers or catchers, and I think that includes Theo. I mean, who is played here last year and was and is looking for a big role this year. But he's a guy I'm pretty excited about. I think I've definitely got my eyes on him. But um, so that's the offense. We'll see you next week. No, okay. I can do this all night. I mean, it's uh, making up for lost time, right? So um, let me check the comments. I've got one share. All my comments are from Alante. Appreciate Alante. Appreciate you sticking with me uh, and and talking through all this. Um, Defense. I think most people feel pretty good about the offense. To be honest, I think um, down the stretch, I think the defense was uh, in some games embarrassing. I think USC. I think Auburn. Um, and just listening to Jay Bateman and Mike Elko talk the way they talk about Tyreek Chappelle, who went down, I think, in practice the week after Notre Dame. So he missed 12 games last year. He only played. I mean, he looked great against Notre Dame. I mean, probably one of the best guys on defense that game, and then missed the rest of the season. And he's back full strength, going through drills. You look at last year's nickel spot, and he was gonna like he started at nickel that first game, and then after that you had to rotate. You had to try Jaden Hill, try BJ Mays, and BJ Mays will always have a place in my heart for picking off Garrett Nussmeier twice in the blackout game and us winning that game. But I think from you know you listen to Jay Bateman and he was like, we were really counting on Chappelle to you know lock it down, and we were going to play man, across our corner spots, because Chappelle's the best cover guy that can play in the slot. And when he went down, it screwed their whole plan up. Now, is that 100% true? I don't know, but um, I think there's something to it because I think there's a pretty big drop off from Chappelle to Hill and Mays, who have since moved on. But now the guys behind him are Jordan Shaw, transfer from Washington, who I believe he's a young guy, maybe a true sophomore. He's a good player. He played, I think, started every game for them. I watched a few games. Did a great job against Zachariah Branch for USC. Looked great in our spring game. I think he probably won't start over Chappelle. I think Chappelle is one of the best guys we have. Um, but he's going to play. I think he can cover. He can tackle. He's a really big asset to have. And then the guy that's really picking up steam, and this is why you don't count guys out when they're 2 years in, when they're from a small school in Texas, is Bravion Rogers. I think he he looked as good as he's ever looked in the spring game, um, and he's the perfect build for a nickel. I mean, he's long armed. He can turn and run, flip his hips. He's fast. I think there's a clip of him making a sick interception in some of the practice clips. Um, Very underrated guy there. And now, like that's a true, that's some true depth at that spot. And if you uh, have a guy go down, or you need more cover guys on the field, you got some options. I guess we'll go back to front. Um, Staying in the secondary, the corners obviously your maybe your highest draft pick next year is Will Lee the third, aka the blanket. Um, Best corner that we've had in years. I mean, years at A&M. Uh, I followed this team for 13 years, 14 years. Then we've had two corners drafted, and one of those guys was a converted running back that um, bless his heart, didn't have the best NFL career, but Jalen Jones was a fifth rounder. I think he's doing quite well in the NFL, but um, we've had no one in those top three rounds, really as a corner. Will Lee will be that guy come April 2026. Um, so big to get him back. Across from him, battle between Des Ricks, who I know people are down on because of the bowl game. I get it, but you know he showed the flashes last year, and I think it's a mental thing because the physical skill set, he's got everything. I mean, he's a big corner, 6'2", you know, 190 plus, maybe even 200 pounds. Um, Great long speed. He's the guy that goes and matches up on a Malik Washington at Notre Dame, or a Cam Coleman, or a Nick Anderson at LSU. Um, I guess Wingo at Texas. He's that kind of guy. And he's in a battle right now with Julian Humphrey. I think it's an interesting story with Humphrey because he was, you know, a highly rated guy from the Houston area in that 2022 class, and we signed every other top player in Houston that year except for him. And you know, like we had plenty of corners in that class. They didn't stick around. They obviously that class had some issues, but um, I think he wanted to come back here or transfer to A&M when Elko was first hired. Georgia talked him into staying, and then eventually, I think he lost his job. Halfway through the season last year, and now he's here. But another big corner, over 6 foot, great speed, great track times in high school, and obviously on tape as well. So that's more depth at corner than we've had. Like we've played. Gosh, in 2023 we had no corners you felt good about. We had zero. Now you've got three on the outside. You've got three at nickel. Um, I think the younger guys, especially the true freshmen, guys like Adonis Curry, guys like Jamar Bill Goins, um, they could see some reps. I think they're both extremely athletic, and they're guys that Elko went and scouted and brought in. So um, I think we're good. We're good in that room, but we need to see someone opposite Will Lee really step up and be able to lock things down. Um, Honestly, so at safety is where I've got some questions, um, and not necessarily in a bad way. I think it could even be a strength, but I've got to see it first. Um, Marcus Ratcliffe, uh, young guy that transferred in last year from San Diego State, tall, 6'3", tall guy, tall safety, tall and skinny when he came over here. Um, and he was, he played a lot more last year than I thought he would. I thought he was a depth guy, and he, first series against Notre Dame, he's out there. I'm like, who's number three? Like, I'm like, who's back here? And, it was Ratcliffe, and he had some nice moments. I think he would tell you that as the season wore on, that he got a little bit banged up, and then wasn't able to play his best. Um, Sorry, I'm realizing that I've been on my AirPods this whole time. I'm going to switch mics. That's great. That's great podcasting, Will. Um, Hopefully that's coming through. Sorry, that's a pet peeve of mine. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, there we go. So cool. Um, Actually, I don't want these settings on. There we go. How about that? 52 minutes in, and we're just in a good spot from an audio standpoint. um, oh shoot. But I think Ratcliffe is a guy that I think of the guys that have benefited from another year of strength and conditioning. Um, he's up there. I mean, he's really filled out. Looks really impressive physically back there. I think he's you know and I think he's a smart player as well. Safety is like that's Elko's spot. If uh, I think it's something that he probably takes pretty personally to have good safety play. So um, the missed tackles and things like that. That's stuff we got to cut down on. The missed tackles and the you know being in the wrong gap at the second level. It's got to get fixed. So um, there's kind of a three-man race here for two spots, and you know two young guys that were second year guys last year playing meaningful snaps at this level for the first time in Ratcliffe and Dalton Brooks, um, who I've always been a big fan of in Dalton Brooks. I think he showed some really, really big flashes with his speed, his physicality, and I think if because I think Ratcliffe is more of an strong safety type. I think he's more of a in the box type of guy. I think you need Brooks or Bryce Anderson to be your free safety, your center fielder back there, um, to have some speed and keep up with uh, some of these faster receivers. Um, and I think Brooks can do that. In his third year, second year as a starter. I think Bryce could do it. He's been up and down, and Uh, he's one of those guys that had an injury that we didn't know about until the season ended, and he played through it. And you could kind of tell that I saw a clip today, and I'm like, dang, that's way better than I thought he played. He had a great tackle against Notre Dame against one of their badass running backs um, for either a loss or for no gain. And uh, yeah, the rest of the year you didn't really see that, and I'm like, man, like what has happened to Bryce? Like, it's just it's. I feel like he's got so much more in him than that, and maybe the injury, maybe it's not. Like I don't really know, but it's kind of do or die for him. Like he's not a guy that can, you know, get another year after this year. So um, he's got to step up and make it happen. So there are some question marks at this spot. I think it's not a guarantee that these guys all just come out and play awesome from the get go. But I think they can. And I think a guy I'm forgetting here is Miles Davis, true freshman last year, hard hitter. I mean, the the few moments he got on the field last year, he made them count because had one of the hardest hits at Kyle Field that you'll see against. I'm pretty sure it's against McNeese, but um, another guy that's another full year in the program. They're really excited about him. That's a pretty clear top four at safety. For those two spots. So they should be able to get something out of those out of that group and and be good on that front. But um, linebacker, not too much to say about Torian York. He's a team captain. He's the captain of the defense, and I think this will probably be his best year so far. And yeah, I think it's a big year for him. He The thing is he's never gonna have the NFL size. So I know people kind of project him to get drafted, like go to the draft. Like he would get picked, but I'm just saying would it benefit him to come back for a senior year and that sort of thing. So I think he will, but it's not a guarantee. So if he wants to make that jump, he's got to really, turn it up this year. Um, Playing next to him is Scooby Williams, maybe the poster, the case for the injured guys that we didn't know about. Um, Scooby tore his meniscus against Notre Dame in the first game of the year, and honestly played pretty damn well at times last year. When he went out of games, when against Texas, uh, he got dinged up and couldn't come back in. It was noticeable. We were missing run fits and not making plays in the run game uh, due to his absence. So I think him being back and fully healthy, that's a big, big deal. Um, and it's a really, really solid starting set of linebackers. I think the young guys, I think Jordan Lockhart is a guy that's really generating a lot of buzz in camp right now. Probably the best bet to get on the field after those top two. And then guys like Damian Sanford, who's played a lot. Young guys like Noah McHale, I'm really excited about. Um, and then Tristan Jernigan, he's another one that's in his second year. He's in that depth as well. So I think it's, you know, in back when I was at A&M after those first 2 years, and really, even then we didn't have the depth. We had two guys or three guys. Um, now we've got, there he is. I've been waiting on this guy, George W. on Twitter, aka John Thomas Wood. He's been asking for a podcast for a long time, and I've been telling him it was coming, and then I just kept putting it off and putting it off. So John, glad you're back. I'm glad I'm back, and I'm glad we're back here on this podcast, uh, talking about the Aggies. So, um, linebacker, I think it's a strength of this team, or a strength of the team, not the strength, but the run defense, I think, will be a lot improved with those two guys healthy, um, more experienced. Like Scooby was a defensive end, you know, converted to linebacker, and you know, took him a while to really learn the position and get that down. But he had some really really bright spots. I mean, he played his ass off against Mississippi State. Uh, Easily player of the game in that game, and yeah, I think it's a big year for both those guys. So, um, lastly, the defensive line. I'm gonna take one more quick break. 1 second. Defensive line. Um, it's been a strength here for a while. Every year that I've done this podcast, it's been like, well, we're not sure about X, Y, or Z, but this defensive line, man, it's going to be good. And most years we've been right, uh, and it has been, it has been good. Um, yes, a lot. I think his name, I think his given name is Scooby. I'll have to look that up, but I'm pretty sure it is. Um, I'm in the off season. At first I wasn't really sure about the defensive end group. I thought, I think when you look at it on paper and you're like, oh, you lose, a first round pick and a second round pick, and then a third round pick at D tackle, you're like, oh my gosh, like we just got wiped out, and uh, I think it's kind of a recurring theme with really most of the guys on defense is there's not the big household names. Like there's not a Nick Scorton where like everyone in the country or at least everyone in the conference it's like, oh, like man, they got Nick Scorton, they got Shamar Stewart, they got Shamar Turner. Like it's gonna be a great defense, a great defensive line. And I think those guys had their moments, obviously. They're super talented, or else they wouldn't have gotten picked where they did. But um, there was just down the stretch, things weren't the same, and the level of play wasn't the same. I think some of that is the play calling, which I haven't really gotten to touched on yet. But um, I think what you're seeing now is Mike Elko getting guys at the defensive end spot that he, you know, at the profile that he wants. Like Shamar Stewart and Scorton were both, pushing 290 last year. Now they both lost a bunch of weight in the draft process. They'll probably play at lighter weights, um, but they were already kind of big. Maybe you could criticize our strength staff and say, "Hey, you guys should have gotten them leaner, and they would have been quicker." That kind of thing. That's fair. I wouldn't disagree with that. But you look at what we have now, and there's not a player on this team that I have beat the drum for more than Cassius Howell. Cassius Howell down the stretch, if you didn't know anyone's name, you would say that's the best player on the defense. I don't know who these other guys are that are going to be in the first round, but that guy's freaking good, and he just, really, really turned it on down the stretch of last season and just is so, uh, he's, he's not like a big, like long arm guy, but just super explosive and like you don't see a you don't always see those types like those defensive ends um like play with that much speed and intensity. Like this dude is a like he is a play with your hair on fire type of guy, which I love watching him play. And he is like, he's going to be a big part of this defense. I think it's going to be a huge year for him. I said during the USC game, hey, 2025 All SEC Cassius Howell will be a part of that team. Um, and I think he will be. I think if there's a thing you can count on the defensive line, I think it's Cassius Howell. Um, at the other end spots, I've really come around. I think it's actually it's a pretty deep group, and I think it's going to be a strength of this team. Um, you know, uh, Dayon Hayes is not a guy that people talk about. Um, he's another guy that's a 6th year guy that 2 seasons ago at Pitt, put up like 44 quarterback pressures, which I think would have either led our team or been second on the team for us last year. And played at Colorado last year, got hurt very early on, but um, I went and watched his tape, and I'm like, he's a different build than some of the other ones. He's a little bit shorter and more compact, but really knows how to rush the passer. If you watch the spring game at all, he was a complete game wrecker um, against everyone that he faced, honestly. And um, I think he's going to be a part of this rotation that can really rush the passer. I think he's not all these guys we've had have the pass rush skills of an NFL player, like the tool set of moves and that kind of thing, and understanding. There's so much more that goes into it than like, oh well, you're a freak athlete and you got long arms, you're very fast and strong and big, and you can probably play defensive end. Um, yeah, no. JT brings up TJ Searcy. He's a guy looking back at the spring game, I've been too low on him. Like I've been beating the drum of Cassius Howell and Dayon Hayes, who I think will both be great, are really good. And man, TJ Searcy, uh, I don't know if this is the same guy that played at Florida. It does not look like it on tape. At Florida, he was, and maybe it's a scheme thing. Maybe they asked him, "Hey, this is what you have to do here," and we're kind of turning him loose or something. But at Florida, he's not doing anything bad or wrong, but he's just kind of there. And I'm like, okay, this is a depth guy. But then he starts, in the spring, like, oh well, he's probably going to start at end force. I'm like, okay, well, that's not, I don't love that. But you watch the spring game, and he's a different guy. I mean, he's not the same guy that he was at Florida. I mean, and he's like some of these ends, especially Searcy and Marco Jones. These are big, tall dudes. Like not big, like bulky, like 280, but like Searcy and Jones are both 6'5" plus, 250 plus. Um, Searcy's got super long arms. He's was way quicker in the spring than I ever saw him be at Florida. Um, had a little more bend in his pass rush game. I think he'll be a great run defender. Um, Super long arms, very strong, very physical. If the pass rush for him gets there, that's going to be a huge benefit to this team because I've already named two guys. He'd be a third. Um, the fourth guy that I think is really set for a big year is Rylan Kennedy. What I would call Rylan Kennedy last year is like a closer in baseball. Maybe he's only got one pitch, but that one pitch is 105 miles an hour. And I think his only pitch last year was just a straight up speed rush off the edge, and you saw it late in games. You really saw it against LSU when that line had played 4 quarters against our defense, and he comes in there fresh and just blows by him for a sack on Nussmeier. Really late in the game to kind of help put things away. Um, that dude, talk about transformations. Uh, that dude is built now. Um, there's pictures out there of his first spring or fall or whatever it was when he got here. Not the same person. Like this dude looks like a real defensive end. Like I thought even last year, I was high on him. I'm like, hey, I think third down, pass rush specialist. I think he could be awesome at that. I think he's a 3 down guy now. I mean, just I think you hear Elko talk about him adding 100 pounds to his maxes in the weight room. Um, it shows in his in his body and his development, and uh, I think those four guys are, you know, there's probably not a first round pick in those four, but they're really solid players. I think they're all NFL players. Um, and maybe like the next great one here is Marco Jones. Was the star of the spring game with 5 sacks. Um, Elko called him out as somebody who was taking it to a new level this fall. Um, he's up over 255 now as well. Looks a lot uh, looks like he's got less baby fat and a little bit more, more put together than in the spring. But um, that's 5 guys right there that we just talked about. There's more guys on the team that can also rush the passer. That it's a deep group, and um, there's nobody right now that has the Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart hype. But I think the production of this group will far exceed what we had last year. Um, D tackles. To be frank, maybe my only like wait and see position that I'm nervous, like D tackle and safety, which JT brought up. So I'll touch on safety again before we get out of here. But um, I think I'm not worried. I just have to see it against Notre Dame, because I think you've got the guys, like you've got the two guys that are 315, 315 plus, that are veteran guys. Albert Regis, 5th-year senior, um, DJ Hicks, 5-star going into his junior year. I think those guys are really, they're up for the challenge of playing D tackle in the SEC, and being forces against the run. I think DJ can probably rush the passer a little bit as well. Um, and then Tyler Onyedem, I think, is you know, from a national standpoint, just he's super underrated. He came from Iowa State, where they play that 3-3-5 defense, where if you're a D lineman, you don't really do anything. You just kind of take up space. And like I watched this film and I'm like, I'm not getting anything out of this film, like from what we're going to ask him to do. So, um, but in the spring game, like I think Chase Basantis is the only guy that blocked him. Um, so yeah, he's your disruptor. He's the guy, that's gonna, be your 3 technique, and uh, he's not gonna 2 gap. He's just gonna get in there and shoot gaps and cause havoc in the backfield. Um, your other guys, Hicks and Regis, they're more of your 2 gapping type guys. Where I get nervous is the 4th guy, and I kind of thought this last year. And like when you really look at the year, which they stayed pretty healthy at D tackle last year. Knock on wood again. Um, and like they didn't really play the 4th guy that much. The 4th guy was Rodas Johnson. Um, he played some, and he was fine. Nothing wrong with him. Made some plays, but they didn't really need a 4th guy to be like a awesome player. But you just need a guy to get in there and eat up some snaps, which I think they've got some guys that can eat up snaps. I think you know, uh, uh, John Thomas, he brings up Dalen Evans. He- if he can contribute in a positive way, that changes things for this D tackle room. He's was a defensive end, coming out of high school. He's a D tackle all the way now, probably a 1 technique all the way now. Big bodied guy. I mean, well over 300 pounds, 6'4". Um, he can be a run stuffing 1 technique. Um, but he's a true or like he's a redshirt freshman. He he was called out by Mike Elko the other day. Him and Marco Jones were both called out as guys who are stepping it up and taking their game to a new level. And that's awesome news. If Evans can do that, that makes things different. And then my guy's Landon Rink. I mean, if you watched the spring game, if you watched anything Landon Rink has ever done, he just tears shit up. Like he is a wrecking ball of a 3 technique, and I don't know why. Um, I'm more mad that that he was a 3-star than I am TK Norman. Um, I don't care what his listed height is. I don't care what he weighs. Um, the kid is already SEC strong. He set records in weightlifting at Sci-Fair. Um, uh, had crazy production at the 6A level in terms of sacks and tackles for loss. Tore it up at the Under Armour or whatever All American game he was in. Tore it up when he got here in the spring game. Like he just Like, I don't care what his if he's a little bit shorter than that position usually is. He's going to be a badass college football player. That's what he's going to be. Um, and I've got no doubt about that. But he also, even if he's not the biggest guy in the world, he's probably 290. Um, he can play this year if we need him to. He can now play him in the B gap and just tell him, hey, see ball, get ball. Just shoot this gap and go mess something up back there. Um, I think he can do that. So um, that's gonna. I mean, lastly, our specialists are amazing. We have the best punter in the country and a fifth-year senior kicker, so we should be set there. um, so yeah, excited about that. But um, JT, if you go listen back, you'll hear me talk about safeties. But um, I guess cautiously optimistic. I think they can be good. But similar to D tackle, I need to see it first. But I'm encouraged by what I've seen so far. But I've got to see it on the field. Um, so how's that? Hour and 16 minutes of nothing but Aggie football talk, roster, all that kind of good stuff. I probably missed someone big, and I didn't even realize. I think I've tackled everyone that I wanted to get to, but yeah, if you've tuned out since last season and you're trying to get back into it, this is a good place to start. Um, Next week, I've got a lot of thoughts, as you might imagine, on our opponents this year. So tune in next week, and we'll try to get into that. But I'm going to give this old voice a rest, and yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning back in, and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you.